Good morning and happy new year, all of you beautiful people out there. We are so excited to be back with you again to kick
Mhm.
off 2023. And I'm joined by my good friend and colleague, Dianna Shyne. How are you, Dianna?
Oh, there we go. I'm great. I'm great. It's been a great start to the new year, and I'm really happy to be here with everybody today. It seems like it's been forever since we were here together, so this is really great.
Yeah, I agree. It really does. I hope you guys all had a wonderful holiday with your family and your friends. And I don't think we have really any announcements that need to be made. So I guess I'll just hand it over to you, Diana.
Okay, great. That's fantastic. Well, I just wanted to say that I'm really happy to join you all today, and let's just get started with our class. And I'll have lots of time at the end, hopefully, lots of time at the end to answer any questions. I pre-recorded my demo. I have to admit this because we were having high wind issues, and you're never sure when the power's going to go out. So, but I will be there to answer questions during my demo on the, oops, sorry, on the chat. So let's get going. I'm going to hit this real quick and press play. Sorry about that. And here we go. Country
All right.
roads and city streets. This is it. And I just wanted to let you know that this is such a broad category. So when we are adding roads and streets, any kind of a path, trail, or road to our painting, we're implying a journey, or we're implying you've been on a journey. Someone's traveling somewhere. There's that implication. And sometimes you're speeding through this space on your way to someplace else. And sometimes you're rambling through the environment on your way, but more so that the journey itself is part of the process, what you encounter along your way. And sometimes the goal of your journey is spread out in front of you, and sometimes it's shrouded in mystery. But when you add a road or a path or a street to your painting, there's some visual and pictorial things that we need to talk about, as well as those more storytelling things. So let's talk about the four things I'm going to discuss with you today. And like I said, for most of you, I always say this, for most of you, this is probably review. But for those of you who are new here, let's just review these things and figure them out together. The number one thing that I want to talk to you about is, where is this road taking you? Where is the destination? Is it outside of your picture in someplace mysterious, or is it inside the picture frame? The second thing I want to talk to you about is how fast you're getting there. Not whether you're in a car or on foot. I don't mean that, but I mean within your painting, there are some lines and some shapes and some things that are causing your viewer's eye to whisk through the painting and out the other side and not even stop and look. Or are you including some items that will slow the viewer's eye down in your painting and let them stop and smell the roses that you provided for them in your beautiful piece? The next idea is, how much of the road, this is a more compositional thing. How much of the road do you really need to get your point across? Like in this picture, do you really need almost 50% of your painting to be gray road? And the final item, the fourth thing we're going to discuss really briefly, is, will a refresher in perspective help your road gain some distance? And for that, I want to say I have created a whole course in perspective. And if you need a stronger refresher in perspective, you can go to that course. It's free with Acrylic University, so no problem. It's just there in your courses. Let's take a look at number 1. Where is the road taking you? And I chose these 2 paintings, one by Carl Bretsky. Let's look at that painting for a minute. The road is taking us upward towards this building. It's a church or a cathedral. We're on our way, but there are some things that are stopping us. Some red lights, some ice in the road. It looks like an icy hill, some cars in front of us. So the going is slow. And the focal point or the place, the destination is a little misty. And I bet if you were in this car going to that destination, you're not going to be glancing around. You're going to be really focused on the road. So there's this sense of softness here. When we look at Brian Buckrell's painting, we notice that the road is wide open. It feels like one of those road trips where if you've ever had driven in a convertible, the top's down, the sun is shining, you're on your way to who knows where, and it doesn't matter. It's not the destination. It's this journey that matters. 2 very different themes for 2 incredibly beautiful paintings. So in this one, let's talk about your point of view. Where is your photograph, your photo reference coming from? Are you just observing, like from this rooftop, other people on their own journeys and you are static? Are you in the middle of your own journey, on your way somewhere, but not defined? Or is the road in your painting an obstacle and not the path? Just some fuel for thought as you look at your reference photos. But let's go dig deep into this compositional idea and look at some things. You can use the lines in your painting, the lines of your road, to draw the viewer deep into your painting. So diagonal lines draw the viewer in. Notice how your eye is drawn into the center of the painting with these both extreme and subtle diagonal lines. But diagonal lines can do something else too. They can send the viewer out of your painting. So take a look again at your reference photo. And if your diagonal lines are drawing the viewer's eye out of the painting, you're not going to give them the benefit and the treat of all of the different things you've painted in there. Let's take a look at an editing tool. I've used my computer to edit this painting. And these lines, this photo reference, these lines in the photo reference are dragging your eye down the street and out of the image before you've had a chance to explore around in there. So I'm going to ask you to consider a minor adjustment to lead the eye in. So take a look at this corner of the photo image, and I'm going to erase. Here, I'm going to move my thing. I just erased the yellow lines. I added some bushes or foliage or grass or whatever. It's just a chunk from my photo what do you call it? Editing software. And I took a little piece of road, a little piece of the yellow road, and I bent it in the other way. So now your eye is doing this, going around the corner and going back. It's being led through the roadway back towards the buildings, back behind this bush. You're wondering, I wonder what's back there. I wonder where this road is taking me, instead of the road just drawing you right out of the picture. Here's the second idea. How fast are you getting there? Let's take a look at some ideas of fast and slow. Strong diagonals in your painting, strong diagonal lines speed you up. And hard edges along those diagonal lines speed you up even faster. So if you have strong diagonals, you're being raced right through the imagery without taking time to look at what's going on around you. But hills, curves, soft edges, and interruptions in the road slow you down. For instance, these trees, they aren't really blocking the road at all, but they're slowing your eye down. They just give you a little more chance to meander through this imagery. And it really does slow your eye down so you can enjoy the painting more. It all depends on what your purpose of the painting is. Do you want the viewer to move fast, or do you want them to take a leisurely stroll? Here's a couple other ideas. This is my friend. These are paintings by my friend, Ramona Youngquist. And here she's created a road with all soft edges. They are diagonal lines, but the diagonals are going very slowly in this painting to the left. And the soft edges all along the road slow your eye down as well. In the painting on the right, shadow shapes across the road slow me down. These are extremely strong diagonals that speed you up, but the shadows slow everything down, create a way that you can take your time through the painting. Yes, we hurry on up through there to the buildings, but not as fast. Imagine that road if there weren't shadows. You wouldn't even see the surrounding stuff until you got up to the buildings at the end of the road. It's a nice trip, isn't it? It's a very nice journey, and that's what we would love to give our viewers, is our view of the journey. Here's some other things that slow you down. Ruts, puddles, curves, horizontal lines, and even oncoming traffic. That'll slow you down. In this painting on the right by Jennifer McChristian, I can feel like either I'm in the backseat looking behind me at a fair I just participated in, or I might be driving the wrong way in one-way traffic, or maybe I'm on the sidewalk walking towards that fair. Whatever it is, whatever I imagine, the road is slowed down by that oncoming traffic and by things that are right in front of me. So think about these kinds of elements when you start designing your painting. Here's a painting I did. It's 30 inches by 40 inches. So I couldn't show it to you. It's too big to put in the frame. And I thought there was something wrong with it. It sat there. I painted it a long time ago, and it sat there for a long time. And then I realized this part of the road is creating an arrow that is sending the viewer right out of the picture. So the viewer doesn't really get a chance to go and enjoy the buildings that are part of my focal point. So I got out my editing tool. Usually I use chalk. I just get some old chalk and start coloring on my painting to figure it out. Ways to slow the eye down. So what I did was curved that pointy arrow down. I put a shadow over the road and overlapped some of these tulips, so they slowed the road down. I changed the road from mid-value to lighter, and I lightened up some of the areas of the road behind, so your eye would go to the areas of hardest edges, darkest darks, lightest lights, and the road was just a conveyance. Here's the two side by side. Then I repainted the painting, and I added one more element. I added this big shadow across the foreground. Who knows what's casting it? But it really slowed the eye down. And then in the middle of the road, I let the tulips grow up over. The road is still there. I can still walk it. But the tulips are now sort of covering that part of the journey. And the other thing is I obscured those pointy, sharp arrows so that you could make your way over to the focal point of the painting. Now the main thrust of the painting draws me straight up the middle and straight to my focal point. And I didn't wreck the road, I just obscured it a little bit. Here's our third element we're talking about today. How much road do you really need in your picture? In this first photo on the left, if you look at it, over half of the picture is dirt. And a lot of my students in the past will get a photograph and just take it so literally. They're painting everything from their feet to the sky. And you don't have to do that. You are in control of the cropping of this picture. On the right, I put a painting by Jennifer McChristian. I'm sorry it's a little out of focus. But I wanted you to see, she's got her plein air painting up. She's doing a picture of a little barn. And instead of painting the road all the way to her feet, she has chosen a section of the road to crop into her painting so that it's a lead in, but it isn't everything. It doesn't dominate the picture. It just is a way to get you where you want to go. Here is a photo I took in Italy, and I call it Hilly Road. And there's a problem with this. And in my course on design, you will see this, as many other ideas in that course. So there's 2 courses if you're interested in this stuff to look at. My course on perspective and my course on design. You can get them in your courses in your Acrylic University stuff. But I wanted you to see some big design flaws here. This big gray mass of the road takes up 1/4 of the picture. And I'm not so sure I want 1/4 of the picture to be dominated by this amount of stuff. And then over here, we see that the diagonal of the road is directly in the lower left corner. It sort of jams itself into the corner and it feels really uncomfortable. And it makes that diagonal line really harsh. So what I'm going to do about it is I'm going to just crop a bit of the photo, and I'm enlarging that cropped space. So now where the road enters the photo is not jammed into the corner. And there's a lot less road. That also means the road in the upper part of the picture is more obvious, more apparent. I can see it better. The other thing I want to do is if we look over to the lower right corner of that road, I don't think I need all that stuff. So I'm reducing that by just putting some grass there, some digital grass, and just reducing the whole size of the road. I know it messes with perspective a little bit, but I like the size of this road better for the whole picture. And since I'm in control of the picture, that's what I want to do. I want this road to be a little more gentle, a little more rambling. This is the way I would edit this picture. Now I have a really nice bush of flowers right in the focal point area, right next to my road, but the road carries me on beyond and up and into this hill country. And I get the pleasure of imagining what I might see up there. And here's the fourth idea I want to share with you. And I'm going to take a little bit more time with this, but number 4, will a refresher in perspective help your road gain distance and proportion? So I'm going to give you a little quickie refresher in perspective. If this is new to you, again, go to that course. It'll really help you. But usually this is just kind of a reminder of perspective and what we mean by it. So here's my viewer. He's walking in a field, and this is what he sees. This is the area of what he's looking at. This bottom part that he's walking on is level, and it's called a horizontal plane. That's the flat plane the person is walking on. These trees over here and the wall of the house, that's called a vertical plane. These are words that you'll find when you're looking at perspective. So they're just words to keep in mind. But this is the important part that I wanted to show you. The artist's eye, where the artist is looking, he's seeing all over the place. But if he was to put a carpenter's level on where his eye is looking, that's called eye level. And eye level is really important when you're using perspective to create things like rivers and roads and fence lines, all kinds of things when you're building houses and buildings. We're going to talk about eye level a lot. So I wanted you to see what eye level means. It means in the very initial phase, level to level ground, level to gravity. Later on, there's other things that happen when you're not walking on flat ground. When you're walking on hilly ground, things will change. But for the most part, we're talking about like a level that is level with the artist's eyes. So here's a railroad track. If you notice really carefully, there's a sign that says no trespassing. I'm trespassing. I took the picture. Oops. And I'm on an active railroad track. I better take the picture quick and hop out of the way. But here's my eye level. I noticed what was straight out of my eye, and I put a line for my eye level. My range of view, what I could see way more sky, and I could see the railroad tracks all the way to under my feet if I moved my head. But this is my eye level when my chin and my head are level with the ground. And when you draw a line up these railroad tracks that should be parallel, if they weren't, the train would derail. But when we're looking at them in space, they converge. Those lines converge right at eye level. This is the basic idea of perspective. It's how everyone sees. It's how we see distance, but this is how we translate it onto a two-dimensional surface. Right there. That's the vanishing point. That little point where all of the lines, all the vertical lines that should be parallel come together, that's called the vanishing point. So let's take a look at it in a different way. Here's a girl standing on a road, and her eye level is right there, right through where her eyes are. There's eye level. And all of the lines along the road that should be parallel if you were looking straight down on them converge at a single point. But no matter where she is standing on this road, eye level is going to be the same. As long as the road is level, no matter where she is on the road, eye level is going to be in the same place. Right? And vanishing point is right there. And I'll show you how you get to that vanishing point in a different way. Let's take a look at these two images. Here's me looking down this dirt path. I can't quite walk down it because there's some barbed wire in the front, but I'm looking down the path. And just taking the average, because this path is overgrown and there's plants and ruts and things, I'm taking the average of the lines along that path. And it's ending right in my eyeball. It's ending right at my eye. When I move over, I'm not looking straight up the path anymore. So I'm going to draw a line up that path, and then I'm going to find a basic line, the average of that grouping of flowers. There's a vague hint of a line, and it ends together. Both of them end at my eye level. I can only see straight up the road, with the road acting like a big triangle, if I'm standing right in the middle of the road. If I'm standing off center to the road's going to be off center to me. Perspective is all about what you see through your eyes every time you move, every time you shift, every time you sit down, your eye level will change. Do a quick little thing with me and just turn your head, look out into the room, and just, use your finger to draw a level and see where eye level is for you. And then stand up and do it again. It changes whether you're sitting or standing. And this is showing your viewer your point of view. eye level and vanishing point. Perspective, that whole idea of perspective is the point of view of you, the photographer or the painter, and you are bringing your audience in and showing them what you see out of your eyes at any given moment in time. It's really cool when you start learning about perspective and how that helps you share your ideas in a painting. Here's how to find eye level and vanishing points in a photo. There's a couple of ideas, and I just want to run them by you. This whole series is also in that course I was telling you about, but I thought it was good to run over. Number one, you can make some educated visual assumptions. Remember I said when you see that triangle in a road, you're in the middle of it. Well, I see a triangle in this road right here. So I must be in the middle of it. So now I'm going to say, number one, where does the viewer appear to be? Well, right here, right? Somewhere in the middle of this road, I'm looking because that's where that V is happening. That's where that triangle in the road is happening. Number two, what's possible? Well, what's possible is what is impossible is that I'm on a horse or a plane. What's possible is that I'm in a car or on a motorcycle. I would not be walking. I would get run down. I can see in the picture it's 50 miles an hour. I am not going to be on foot. And number three, in this scene, where would my eyes be? As I'm imagining myself in this lane of traffic, I notice I'm just from what I'm seeing, it looks like I'm further to this side. And I was not, you can see I'm in a car. Here's the windshield, the dirty windshield up above. If you can see, I was in a car and I was in the passenger seat of the car. I'm not going to risk my life taking pictures while I'm driving. So that's what's possible. That's where I appear to be. And my eyes would be, I don't know, I'm sitting in the car, my eyes are somewhere in here, but let's take a look at some other things. Here's where I probably am located somewhere, right in there. Number two, we're going to look for where perspective lines flatten. So I'm going to take a straight edge. And I can see that the lines of perspective are at an angle. They're diagonal to this straight edge. So I'm going to move it up. And when I look at the lines, they're still diagonal to this straight edge. When I move it up further, all of those lines flatten out right there, right where I moved this line up. And you can just take a piece of string and move it up and down your photograph, or a ruler and move it up and down your photograph until you see that all the lines flatten out. That's going to give you your eye level. Now you can follow any two parallel lines, and that will also give you where they come together, where they hit. That also gives you your eye level. I'll follow some more lines out, and you can see how easy it would be to start constructing a city scene, because every single line that follows along the line of that road, every single building, every bit of the railing, every bit of the road that follows along the same line as the road, all those lines end at the vanishing point. Wow. So if you had a ruler, you could create this city, and it wouldn't be that hard to do. Now let's take a look at when you're going two directions at once. First of all, I've got this field. There's a little road path running down a ditch. There's some rows of tulips. And right over here on the very left, I've circled it. There's a person. And I'm going to tell you a secret. When I'm standing on the same level as another person, I can imagine that their eyes are about the same level as mine. I'm average height. If you're like 7 feet tall, this might not work for you. Or if you're 4 feet tall, this might not work for you, but I'm about average height. So I'm going to imagine this person and I would, if we cross paths, we would be eye to eye. So I'm going to use their eyes to find my eye level. Right there, that person. I will run an eye level line right through where their eyes would be. And let's see if it works. Because this is another way to find eye level in a photograph, is to look for another person in the photo. And if they're standing on the same level, it doesn't work if they're standing on a stair or standing in a gully. If they're standing on the same level as you, their eye level will be the same eye level as yours. So let's follow some parallel lines up in this tulip field. And yes, now let's follow a couple parallel lines up, the parallel lines of the ditch. What we're seeing is that there are 2 vanishing points. And because everything is on the same level, those vanishing points end up on your eye level. So if you've got a road going one direction and a road going the other direction, you can find both of their vanishing points along the level of your eyes. How easy is this? So here's how you do bends in the road. Bends in the road become a problem for just about everybody. We will talk about hills, going up and downhill visually on a flat canvas. In my course, I don't have time today for it in this course, but we're going to see how we can make a bend in the road. So first, I'm going to find eye level. And the first section of road right here, I'm going to find 2 parallel lines. So here's one line, here's another line, and yeah, they end together. They get together at eye level. Now I'm going to find 2 parallel lines. Now the other parallel line is hidden behind some bushes, so I got to really look for it. But here it is. And that too ends at eye level. When you're drawing this out, you can make a little curve. See how sharp that bend is right there? You can make a little curve right here, and that would help the drawing. But you can see each part of the road as it bends goes to a different point along eye level. Vanishing point 1, vanishing point 2. This part of the road down here is different because it's flatter and it will end. So we'll talk about that in my course. Don't worry. But when you're drawing this out, you can merely find, you look at the edges of your drawing, find where that road connects to the side of your page, connect it right there. It's just, an inch up or whatever. I'm going to find where this part of the road connects up to my page and just connect it there. And then I can hook the lines up. I can just hook those lines up. I don't need to know the third vanishing point for that. But you can see how easy it would be to make, if I had a third bend in the road, if the road bent upwards again, I would just find the 2 parallel lines and continue the road up the hill. Zigzagging the road up the hill, finding where the lines connect up with your eye level, and that will give you a beautiful bend in the road. Now we're getting to the painting I'm going to paint. And I'm going to walk you through some of the preparatory things I do when I'm painting. And I have my photo reference printed out. It's not as bright in my little video as it is in real life. And I've got a report cover over it, a plastic report cover that's sort of reflecting some of the room around. It dulls the colors a bit. So I want you to know, if you look at the photo on the left, those are the real colors. But I want you to see why I'm going to crop it the way I do. How to design this painting. And one of the things I'm looking at is there's just a lot of information here. And I think I'm going to crop. I would like this to be an upright painting, emphasizing the movement of the road. This wide cropping sort of lets me in and meander in, but I've already cropped it and photographed it. And here's the basic cropping I have for this painting. I like the grouping of buildings here. I might move things over, But I want to take a look at the basic structure first before I get started. And I have this old piece of red film. I just putting over this to see the structure of darks and lights. So I'm going to take a dry erase marker on this film, and I'm just looking at everything below the skyline is a dark or mid value, except maybe right here. And then this dark looming cloud, I kind of don't like it in this, for this picture. So first of all, let's take a look. I'm measuring from where the dark begins, where the darker values, and it's exactly half. And that right there is a compositional problem. So I either need to give this image more sky or more brown. I need to crop it so it's not exactly half. The other thing is this building is right in the very dead center. What if I cropped this to give it more sky? I've got this on a sleeve, and this is a dry erase marker, so I can just wipe it off if I don't like it. What if I cropped it to give it more sky? Then my darks are sort of grouped here. And I'm going to lighten this cloud up, so that will be gone. Okay, so now I have more sky than land. I like that idea. Now I'm going to look at the perspective. Let me just, before I go, I'm going to try it a different way. I'm going to give it less sky and more road and see if I like that better. Now I have less sky. When I look at this image, oops, I need a little bit more sky. I'm not half and half. I'm cutting off my phone pole, but I don't mind that so much. Now I just have to decide, what is my idea for the painting? That big high sky gives me a real lofty feeling here. So I think I'm going to go back to that first idea, more sky and less road. Even though I'm talking about roads, that's my idea for this. So I really liked cropping it down, and now I think I'm going to crop it down. You can see here I've cropped it even further. I've taken that foam pole out so that I have less amount of water on one side of the house than the other. But let's take a look at where I go from here. I took the sound out of this because it was scratchy, so I'm just going to talk over. I put my this piece of red film is years old. It's so messed up. But now I'm just going to go and retrace my steps here just a little bit and find the shape of my darks, my lights, and my midtones. And then I am going to draw that shape into my sketchbook. So I may fast forward a little bit. You don't need to see me drawing every little shape. But here I've marked my lights are in the sky. My darks are here in the lower center. I have a little bit of dark. And most of the road and the in-between part is mid-value. So we're going to use that as the way I'm going to lighten up that thing at the top. So here I'm just going to transpose what I've done on the film into a little sketch. And it doesn't have to be much. It's an abstract sketch just to make sure I know where my lights, my mid values, and my darks are going to go in my painting. I'm using a gray felt pen, and it's a mid-value gray felt pen. Doesn't matter what. And I'm just filling in where I feel like mid values go. Now I'm filling in where the dark values go. I've left out the little silo, which is actually the focal point in my painting, but I think that's okay. We can see really clearly where those big abstract shapes go in the overall look of the piece. Now, let me pause it for a minute and I'll show you what I've done. I've taken a piece of string and I just put a little piece of green tape, just some masking tape on the ends of this piece of string. And I'm going to stretch it out across just like a ruler. The reason I'm not using a ruler is I can see on either side of the string easy. And what I'm doing is I'm laying this string across some different areas that are diagonal perspective lines. And I'm noticing that when I lay the string across the top of the phone pole or the edge of the road, they seem to meet up. The thing they have in common is the window right in the door of this farmhouse. And I think that's cool because every line ends up and lines up with the window. So I've got my photo on a piece of foam core so the pin goes through easily. And I've punched it through. And now I'm dragging the string around and you can see the edge of the field, the edge of the road, this edge of the road until the road begins to curve, this edge of the road until it begins, or the edge of the gully there until the road curves. And even the top of the first edge of these, fence posts, the other fence posts change because they're on a hill. They are not on a flat plane on that horizontal plane, so they change in elevation. Everything else can be found out by putting this string down and drawing in those lines. Even where the tops of the fence posts go, everything can be determined by just pulling this line around. How easy is that? There's my perspective. This is how I want my road to be in my painting. Now we'll just pop those into my little sketch here, put the pin right where I feel like the door is, and put those little marks into my sketch. And I have a diagram of perspective for my painting. I've got a compositional idea of how I want the darks and lights. I've got an idea of how I want my diagonals to draw me in. My lines of perspective are taking me right to the door of that house. And that's my destination in this painting. The road goes beyond, but I'm going to stop at this house and maybe have a cup of tea. It seems like such a nice place to hang out, doesn't it? A little farmhouse on the edge of the sea. Now, I'm going to show you how I do color. And to do that, oh, sorry, I just clicked away. All right. To do that, I'm using this color harmony wheel. And it is different than a lot of other color wheels. And it has this great big opening here. I think you can just get this at any art store, Dick Blick or Jerry's Artorama. I don't know. I haven't seen it on Amazon, but maybe even on Amazon. But I like it because it also has some pigment colors around the wheel. We're not going to worry about these pigment colors because we're using just 4 that I like to use. But I want to show you what happens as we look at I did it again. Oh my goodness, I am really goofing up here. I hope you guys can put up with me while I fast forward through this. This is really funny. I am really messing up, but I think you'll forgive me for just this second. Here we go. The color harmony wheel. I won't touch it. You can turn this wheel around, and what you do is in between those larger brackets, you bracket in what is mostly in your painting. In this case, it's mostly blue and green. And so I'm bracketing in between these brackets. There's some violet shadows. I'll leave those in, but I am putting in between those brackets what my image is mostly. Blues for the sky, blue, green in the sky, greens in the grass. And over here, that's the opposite on the color wheel. And this little piece is called Discord. And we can see the discord creates a vibration. We can see discord in that little tree. The road in the light is the color opposite. So let's now take a look at how I would mix those colors. I'm sorry I goofed up on that. That was sad, but I'll make it up to you, promise. So here is my ultramarine blue. I'm looking at the blues for the sky, and I'm going to test out a couple of blues. The other one's my phthalo. So I'm going to first put my blue down and just add enough white to get it the right value or a close value. Now here's my phthalo blue green shade, and you can see it's a very different blue. The ultramarine is a more purpley blue, and the phthalo blue green shade is a more turquoisey blue. So as I lighten these colors, I can really see which color would be better for my sky. And I believe it's the phthalo blue green shade for that main body of the sky. Now there's a lot of clouds in the sky. We'll get into that in my demo. But I want you to see that just how easy it is to do a quick little color study here. For the next bit, I'm going to mix up my greens. And I'm going to see, first I'll experiment. My phthalo blue green shade makes a really, really, really bright green. Let's see what my ultramarine blue and my cadmium yellow medium makes a duller green. Not quite as bright. The ultramarine isn't as bright a blue, so it makes not quite as bright a green. That green seems to be really nice for my less bright trees. I'm going to get them a little darker so I get that dark bit going. And let's take a look. For the really bright grasses, the phthalo blue and yellow looks great. Now I'm going to dull that dark green with a tiny drop of this red. You can see it, that teeny tiny little drop. And oop, that went dull. If I put equal amounts of green and red, I would have brown. I don't want brown. So here's my dark color. Now I'm just going to kind of bring you through using my duller of the greens for duller items. Now I'm mixing a dark with my red. My two blues are my dark colors, but red and blue makes purple. So I have to change it. If I want the dark shadows on the trees, the dark roof, I'm going to change it with just a drop of yellow, and that turns it black. So I don't need black on my canvas. I have this dark color. Look at that nice dark color there. So I am going to mix these again in my demo. So I'm going to show you what the colors look like. My phthalo green, my ultramarine. Here's my shadow color is this magenta. And I might need to lighten it up a bit. My shadow on the road color isn't really super dark. So I will get one of the colors that's in my color harmony wheel. The other color I need to mix is this red-orange, the opposite. So I'm mixing red and yellow together to create a red-orange. But my road isn't that bright and isn't that dark, so I have to lighten it. So I'm lightening it with a little bit of white. And I'm using that mixture to lighten up the shadow areas too. Take a look. Now let's look at this lightened red-orange for the color of my road. Yeah, look at that. A little bit of red-orange in my focal point on the silo over here. Now I'm taking some of that orange and I'm mixing it with the green. And that's going to create that discord color that we were looking at. That one little piece of discordant color, sort of a greeny orangey brown, that's going to give a little bit of vibration. And then the last color I'm looking at is the color of the sea. That looks more ultramarine to me. So I'm just using my ultramarine blue mixture as nice and straight as I can. And I noticed that the house is just slightly lighter than the water behind. So I just lightened it up and warmed it up a tiny touch. And there we go. There's my color harmony. So with all these things in place, the color wheel, we're getting ready to look. I just want to show you how this color harmony worked. Here's all my blues and where they were located on the palette. Here's that dark green. It's mixed from ultramarine and yellow with a tiny drop of red. Here's the greens from the phthalo blue green shade and yellow. Here's the complement, the red orange with some white added. And here's the discord color, that kind of browny, orangey, yellowy color. So now I think we're ready to paint. I've got my thumbnail with perspective lines covered over with the color sketch. I have my palette all set out. I have my photograph cropped and ready to go, and everything's ready. So Peter, can you run my demo?
Yes, I totally can.
All
All right.
right, thanks. All right, I'm going to get started with my painting. And first I'm going to sketch on the image. Based on my sketchbook, I can see where I'm going. Now I'm going to do that with the tip of a brush rather than a pencil, because I don't need to make a lot of changes to this. I just want to get just a few marks down where things are going to go. Now I can always cover up anything that I don't like, so I can come back later if I don't like any of these ideas. That's weird. All right. Here's my road. Here's where that porch begins, right here. I'll make the door because I'm going to put these lines of perspective, these main lines of perspective. I'm just going to match them up with the door here. Remember this is my eye level right here. So I'm matching up the turn in the road. And it's kind of scratchy. So here's the turn in that. There's a dark thing here. I'm not going to do all that because I'm going to put a wash in. I'm going to let this dry and I'm going to put in an underwash. There's another little thing here that divides off a field. This silo comes down further and is more open. I'm not going to worry about that too much just yet. Tree comes around it. I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to put in a warm colored wash. Let's see. Ooh, I have a brand new brush that I got for Christmas. So I'm going to just create a warm wash with my red and my yellow. Nice orange. Because the light in this is orange, I'm going to use an orange wash. So I'm putting some water on my brush. This is an ultra smooth panel, so it's going to show every mark. But I like that. You can use any kind of panel you want. I'm just sort of loving these ultra smooths right now because they really, my brush just whips along them Sometimes you'll find this stuff doesn't hold your paint very well. You might want something with more tooth, with more gesso on it. So here's my wash. Now I'm going to take, this wash is representing mid-value. Remember my little value ideas? So up here, this is going to be my 3 lighter values. On my value scale that I use, they're a 1, 2, and a 3. That's what those values are going to be. Now I'm going to leave this stuff as mid-value. There is a light value here, but I'm going to leave this tinted a little bit. And now I'm taking my brush and I'm going to thicken this a little bit with less water in it. This is the only time I'm going to use water, because watery things don't adhere properly. So now what I'm doing is taking more of my darker colors. That wasn't dark, it was yellow. And I am going to mark in where I want my darker colors, not the actual colors, but the darks. The darks of this composition. So we're going to see dark things, mid-value things, and light things. That's right up the center of that house. This is a really old house. There's the door, the porch area. This dark comes way down. Now I'm going to draw this little architectural thing in better in a little while. I'm basically just popping in my values. And there's something I saw in my thing here is there's some light coming through. This is a little bit darker, a little bit darker. There's a little bit of light coming through here. This is mid-value, mid-value, a little darker. There's some shadows. This is a little lighter here. It's all drying so fast, of course. Shadows coming across the road. Oops, making sure all these lines end at the door. That's really fun. You really know where you're going in this piece. You really know where you're going to end up. Is right at the door. So I'm just looking at and blocking in. Oh, did that end up in the center? No. Good. I might drop this down even a little bit more. While this is drying, I am going to mix up more of that sky color. There's a lot of that sky color here. Most of the painting is blue and green. So I'm going to mix up a lot of this light, light, light. It's just phthalo and white. Here's also light, just a slight bit darker for that cloud. I don't want it to be a looming cloud. I just want it to be a little cloudy. And then there's some white with orange. in the clouds in the sky. There's also some white with a little bit of this gray-blue clouds in the sky. I'm going to mix up a little more orange for the road. And there's white in it. It's lighter. So what I'm doing is mixing up the main color. Step one. Is it orange? Is it blue? Is it green? Is it violet? And then step two, I'm getting it the right value for my painting. Once I do that, I will adjust the temperature and intensity of the colors as I go. Here's that mid-value green that's not so bright. I used ultramarine for that. And again, I'm just mixing a pile more of these colors so I have them and I don't have to stop. Tiny touch of red in that darker green. Phthalo and ultramarine in the brighter, warmer green. I'm just mixing up more of my colors here. Ooh, I can see there's too much phthalo in that. It's not lightening up very fast because the phthalo is so intense. I have to get more ultramarine and more yellow in there. This is okay. I got a lot of green in this picture. All right, I'm going to start blocking it in. And what I mean by blocking it in is I'm just going to put in the big ideas, the big shapes. And for that, I'm getting out my brush. This is a number 10. I'm going to block in the big area of sky. And you can see that this panel shows every brush mark. And I wanted to show you something about having brush marks is the more you stroke, the more you pat away, the less brush mark is going to show here. So what I want to do is load up my brush with a nice glob of paint and kind of leave it. Not just pat away at it. There's some clouds here on the horizon I'll put in. I may need to lighten those eventually. We'll see. I'll do it right now. That moves up into the clouds in the sky. And I'm going to overlap this tree, and I'll bring the tree back over it again. I don't want the sky to just simply butt up against the tree. I want there to be a connection, like the sky is behind the tree, the sky is in the tree. So I'm just I'm not putting the cloud shapes in just yet. I'll do that in a little while. If I scumble, which is what I'm doing right now, it makes the paintbrush strokes really thin. If I stroke, it makes the paintbrush strokes really thick. Now I am using some really thick white. Utrecht white is extremely thick. So here what I'm doing is I'm just putting in my main color ideas in the sky. There's clouds near the water, and there's some more clouds up near the top. I will put in the details of these clouds closer to the end of the painting because details can distract you from your main focal point. And what I want to put in is just the right amount of details for this painting. So here I'm going to go to the color of the water that I mixed up, the color and value of the water. Oop, darker. Darker still. There we go. And it comes out the other side. Blocking in. I'm going to now block in my dark shapes. And I mixed a nice dark using my two dark colors, red and blue. And I'm just going to put a touch of this dark green in rather than yellow, because it has the same effect. And I will block in. Just leaving a spot where that dormer goes. I'll get back to that in a minute. And then these two colors, the dark color of the building and the dark color of the tree, fuse. So I'm fusing them. Some of the color of the sky is getting into the top of the tree, and I do not mind. Going to move the dormer over. It's right up the center along with the door. Get some of that dark color down here. I've spread these elements out a little bit, but I think that's going to be okay. Now I'm going to take some of this darker color. Here's my vanishing point right up here in the window of the door. Now this does not follow this shadow in this little gully. I'm sure that's to drain rainwater away. Does not follow the exact perspective, but it does a little bit. So I'm going to keep that in mind. Then there's a shadow shape over here, and I'm just following the line down from where my vanishing point is on the roof. Okay, I'm going to start just filling in, blocking in my other colors. And this is pretty fun. I'm popping just a tiny bit of orange in. There's orange in the underlayers, and that orange in the underlayers will help unify and tie the ideas of light together. There's a mid-green over on this side. I want to make sure I've got this line. It's a little bit lighter. You can see what I'm doing here is I am trying to pay close attention to my values, my shapes, and my perspective all at the same time. Now I mixed a lot of orange into the light side of this tree. I'm kind of loving it. Here's, got a little green mixed into my blue violet of my house. That makes a really pretty gray color. I might use that. It's an accident, but maybe it's a happy accident. We'll see. Get out a smaller brush. Now I'm not going to concern myself right now with the exact shape of this dormer. I'm going to come back in with the roof and get it just where I want it. Oh, I think this needs to be a little more lavender and lighter than the sea. Or blue violet, I should say. The gray is sort of sad. Now I'll come back in and really draw this house in a minute. There's green back here, a medium green that kind of blends with the sea just a little bit. Now, I'm going to work on getting this blocked in. Oops, I'm using my small brush. I should be using a bigger brush. It was grubby. I'm going to block this in. See what I can do here with the block in. I don't want this to have a lot of texture in it just yet, but I am going to scratch through a little bit of texture. When that dries, it'll get covered up and it'll have some more, it'll just add a little bit of lively texture. Now, here is the color of the road. It's just about the same color as my underwash. I'm leaving some spaces for those strips of shadows coming across. Paying attention to stuff like that right away keeps me a little bit more on track. So I'm going to wiping away most of the lines in my photo now. Now, I'm paying attention too because these strips of shadows aren't as dark as I think they are. I'm going to lighten them up a little bit. My mind said shadow and my hand said dark. I'm lightening them up with the color of the road. There's lots of little strips. I'll get all the little details in later, but it doesn't cross the grass this color. On the grass, it turns to a darker color. The shadows, of course, become shadows in the grass, which are then green. And they connect up to this big shadowy area here. And what these shadows do is they slow the road down. This is a road you want to travel down slowly. It's a beautiful little road. And I really would like to just ramble down it, not drive my car down it like at breakneck speed. I want to just take my time on this road and listen to the sounds and feel the day starting to slip back into not quite evening, just night, just sunset time. We're facing east, so the sunset, or we're facing, what would that be? Not quite east. The sun is over here, so that direction is west. So I guess we're facing south. That would make sense. So I want to just pay attention to the light because that's one of the things that we do in Impressionist painting. We pay attention to the light. I think up under the eaves, there's like this blue-green color that I kind of love too. It's a little darker. And then the side of the house is in shadow. And there's a little bit right by the edge of the house here. Oh, oops, not quite there, but a little bit over here of just a little bit of that, the sea, the color of the sea, and then there's that strip of green. Like poking through the tree. Here's the top of the tree. Now that things are starting to set, I can find edges of things a little better. This dark Now here's where having these mixtures comes in really handy. The water is slightly lighter, closer to us for some reason, so I'm just following that, making it slightly lighter, closer to us. There's a little tiny sliver of road showing right here as the road turns around the front of the house and continues on. I think I'm stopping. I think I'm going to stop at the house. That front door is beckoning me to come and stay, to hang out for a while. My hardest edge is going to be right along here, along the side of the roof, and then along here, along the side of the silo. It's receiving a lot. The top of this silo is facing up towards the sky, and it's receiving some of the reflected light of this sky, while the side of the silo here is getting that bright, warm orange shock of sunlight. So I'll just pop that in. I'm still blocking in the ideas of this painting, and I want to stay in this block-in stage for quite a while. Because then I'm going to just go at it with some texture. I want to give this road some character. This is Prince Edward Island, and I have not visited there in so long because of COVID, because of family matters, and it's time. I really, really want to go back. And maybe this is there's so many lovely people there I want to visit. It's just been a big part of who I am as an artist. I would go there every summer to do plein air painting and to explore the island with friends. Friends from the island, they would take me all over the place and then throw parties for me. It was just, oh, what a delightful, delightful place and delightful people. Walk down the street and they'd invite me over for tea and cake I loved it. Loved every minute of being there. So maybe this is just part of a return that feels like returning to friends, returning to friendships. Part of my journey. Now, this is too dark. I am going to lighten it and brighten it. Things are starting to happen. I see some dark green down here. And this dark is part of the compositional thing that attaches to the side of the page. I need it. This orangey green is up here. It was just, when I took this photo, it was just late September. Colors starting to turn, but not quite there yet. And it would be really nice to capture that late September feel in the turning planes. Now, I think we're ready to start the actual finish, to start the finish of this painting. So I'm going to just think about now where all these colors originate, what's making them, and how I can best explain without too much storytelling. I want the viewer to just explore the space themselves without me explaining every little thing. But there needs to be a few things. I want to make this porch inviting with little shapes. I am trying to lose some edges, especially in these darks. I want edges to just be lost in some places. Now, that's the fun of painting, and also just making a statement to yourself. What do I want this painting to be? How do I want this painting to be perceived? What's going on? There we go. It seems like there's a little reflected light coming up under here. We're just going to bring some brightness to the bottom of this house. Do I need all the window frames and window edges? I don't think so. And I'm moving around the picture from point to point now. Just finding where, when I squint, where things are not functioning, where I want them to function. Here's another place where I want there to be a hard edge. Is right along the edge of this silo. It does not have an eave. And I want there to be a soft edge where the shadows turn in. Now, there is a telephone pole that I really like. It comes here. And there's another one that comes right here. And the tops of them are in perspective to my door. And I want them to have that little accent color that I put in my, ooh, too bright, clashy, but I kind of like it too. Just a little bit of that accent color. And then we'll put some shadow color on it as well. And the other telephone pole goes out of the picture here, but maybe I'll put it in right here. It comes down. This one comes down along the edge. This one comes down along the edge. Maybe I'll put it in, and maybe I won't. I just have to make sure that it follows the line of perspective. Okay, is it time for some clouds? This is set up a little bit, so maybe I can get some of those clouds in there. I'm mixing just a tiny drop of yellow into this blue to create just a subtle teal in the sky, which is kind of an evening thing. Now I'm going to get some of this pinkish color. Not everywhere. There's just a few of these clouds catching the light like that. And then there's a kind of a purpley gray. Oh, way too dark. I want to keep the clouds all in the lightest. A purpley blue gray maybe. Because these are not the focal point of the painting, I want to make sure they don't capture too much attention, but just put a repeat of these shapes into the sky in an interesting way to lead your eye through this big expanse. Too dark. Way too dark. And just to feel the edge of the day. That's the big thing for me here, is getting the clouds to help me out with getting a feeling. And a really, a demo painting is never as good as a painting that you sit home alone with and brood over. You've got to keep cracking along here. But my goal for my paintings is to create a mood, an atmosphere, a lively, fun, or moody, or nostalgic, or something, a feeling that you don't get from just a photograph or an illustration. And so rather than exactly copying the photograph, I am trying to create a feeling in this painting by using what's in the photograph, and hopefully that will help me with the feel of nightfall and the feel of the moving clouds, the feel of a little puff of wind over this ocean area, over the sea. It's really such a lovely place, and it's so wonderful to have homes and farms that are right up next to the water like this. Mm. There's the top of that pole. And I just moved it into the painting because I thought it needed it. So I'm just going to put some light on it. I don't want it to overtake the painting with too much shadow and light. There's a little strip of bright green right along the edge of the road here. Even lighter. I'm using the tip of my brush to get a nice fine little line there. I need to make some more of that dark, so here we go, that dark green. Because there's some right up here between the mowed edge of the roadway and the field behind. So I'm going to look for spaces now that will be interesting, and I need to make a whole bunch of this color. So I better get it going. Some nice thick marks, and then there are some ruts in the road where cars have gone by. And so I'm looking for big wide spaces and then thin spaces. I'll do the wide spaces with the flat of my brush and the thin spaces with the side of my brush. But I am picking up a gob of paint with each lay-in. There's some little posts over here I want to put in too, because I think they'll be really a fun part of this composition. But I don't want to get too carried away with all that stuff. Now there are some lighter areas in the road, those ruts I was talking about. And they also line up with perspective, get bigger as they come forward. So, and they don't go the whole length of the way. I have to be careful of that as well. And I don't want every single little rock and stick in here. What I'd like is just some subtle movement. The feeling that cars have come down this road before, that travelers have walked down this little path. Okay, I'm going to make sure I'm still mostly following the perspective lines. You know, nature sometimes veers away, but it all does the same thing. Things get smaller as they go away from you and bigger as they come closer, and perspective is a way of making sense of all of that. Dark green edge right here, and I want to make sure it ends up. It's like the edge of the grasses that are lifting up here. And it's going to end up at the house as well. These grasses. I certainly don't want that telephone pole to take over the whole world here, so we're not going to let it. And at this end part of this painting, I am putting, oh, isn't that a nice color? I'm just going to let it stay because it looks like it belongs there. Right along here, before you get to the road, there's like a little mound, and there are 3 fence posts along that little mound. It goes down. Now, I'm not going to paint every fence post. I'm going to put in the idea of the fence posts, and they clump together. Back over here, before they get to the house, they kind of clump together, so you can't really see between them. And then some of them are in shadow. So I want to make sure well, here's the ones that are the 3 up here. I want to make sure that I don't overdo these fence posts, but I think they're a nice balance to this. These ones come down, these ones go up. I'm trying not to put them into too neat and tidy a row, even though the farmer would probably be mad at me for that. And I want them in some way, wherever they're parallel to the ground, to end up at my focal point, or at my vanishing point, I should say. Now, I would like to take that red violet color that was in my color wheel and just put a little bit of it in the door if I can. Yeah, maybe not. It might be a nice little reflection there. I'll leave it for a minute, and then we'll see how it all works out in the end. This has been a little bit longer a demo because I thought it would be nice. You've been doing this for a while now to see more of my thought process as I go through this chain of events here. So I think I need to be done for now, or we'll be here all day. And I'll be available to answer some of your questions. One more little detail here. Okay, the road home. Okay, there's just one little goober that I want to fix. It seems like there's always something when you step away. And my normal way of painting is that I step away from my painting often and look as it dries and make sure everything's going the way I want it to go. Everything's drying in the direction I want it to dry. That's why I added this lighter bit. This little bit up here in the sky is not what I want it to be. I want it to be much, much lighter. It looks like some weird element that doesn't belong there. So I am lightening it up. I just want it to be a movement, not a distraction. There, I think that's better. And for a 1 hour painting, I think this is, pretty much where I wanted this one to go. All roads leading me home. Few more little. Now this is where I could overwork. So my few little touches have to be tempered with not so much. Just a little bit. Just enough to be pleasing. Because at this point, that's all I'm after is just finding a way to make things pleasing. Into a snake. I've got to get rid of it. I've got to break it up. I've got to soften those edges. There we go. We don't want a snake in the sky. Just mist, air stuff. Just a little bit. Just the feel. Oh, this comes out. And this gets taller as it comes forward and shorter as it goes back. Now I'm pretty confident it's done. Peter.
Hey. Okay.
Hey.
All right. I'll hand it back off to you.
Here we are. Okay, here we are.
There we go.
Okay, great. Sorry, everyone. That's funny. But I'm here, still here for a couple more minutes. If anyone has some questions, I was going to go pop over to my canvas and show you a couple more changes I made to the painting in the middle of the night last night. I went, oh no, I didn't like whatever. You know, when I do that so often. So do you mind if I go back over to the canvas and we'll just take a look at a few little tiny changes, or are we done? You guys tell me.
No, you have time.
Okay, great. Perfect. Yeah. Well, I'll go over there then and we'll take a look at this. Okay, gotta bring my mic with me. Can you hear me? So when I finished, I took my string. Oh, here it is. Remember that perspective string? And I just stuck it on the house again. And middle of the, like, not middle of the night, but like 11 o'clock at night, I just stuck the piece of string here to make sure, and I changed some of these lines just a touch so that when I swung my string around, I still had a nice perspective here. There might still be some thick paint. A painting is never done. It just ends in an interesting place. Someone said, I forget, maybe Picasso, I forget who said that. But I might take my rubber spatula or my palette knife at a later time and come back in and really thicken up the foreground here, really get some gooey stuff going. But I think I really like the way the sky turned out with all the different colors gently showing through. I have two focal points, a main focal point with the darkest dark, lightest light, brightest contrast, and then my kind of the focal point of all of these lines. So there's a secondary focal point. And I really like how the road turns and moves away, but it still just draws you right there. So that's the painting. Now, if anyone has a question, I'm going to come back over to to my screen here if I can move myself over. Here we go. Home. There we are. And I'll look for questions and answer them. And so, just in case you're like just exhausted, you don't have any more questions, I've answered them all already. So let's see. Doug says, beyond perspective, what tricks can help you make the road lay down and go flat versus looking like one of the pyramids of Egypt? That is a great question. And it has to do with the horizontal lines that you create throughout the road. Like, a great way to do it is to have a wide shadow in the foreground and then narrower shadows as they go back. Have the brighter, like if the road is colorful, have the brighter colors and the richer contrast in the front of that pyramid of the road, and make it get increasingly paler and slightly grayer as you go back up that road. That will help that roadway feel more like it's going away. And Sue asks why I would beef up the foreground. It's just to make it come forward a little bit more, to make it even pop more into the foreground, to give it that little bit more perspective. Oops, I hope my mic is close enough. There we go. It just gives it that little bit more perspective. If you kind of look at there's a painting right behind me. Maybe I can bring it up. The foreground of the road might be in too much reflection. The foreground of the road is thicker and beefed up with more texture, and that makes it pop forward. And that just helps keep it from looking like a flat thing. And yeah, my eye does like those. Karen says, I'm not sure why, but my eyes want to go to the fence posts first. And yeah, they're like a little bit of a lead in. They sort of grab your eye and pull you up into the painting, which is why I put them in there. Let me go back to that. There we go. Yeah. See how they just, those little fence posts just draw you right back in there. So yes, Karen, they do. They are meant to grab your eye and then zoom you back to the house. So that was a really good observation on, on those posts. And Doug says, does it matter what value you use in the front versus the back regarding to whether it lays down or not? Can it be either way? Well, nature throws us curveballs all the time. But in general, the biggest contrasts of values are in the foreground, and the smaller contrasts of value are in the back. So that might be a clue. Also in nature, in visual perspective, the brighter colors are in the foreground and the little bit duller as they go back. So if you use those two ideas, and then you look at your reference, whether you're actually out in nature or using a photo, you can turn up the dial a little on those ideas. Exaggerate the color in the foreground a little, desaturate the color just a little in the back, and it will help that road lie down. And let's see. Jody says, I focused on horizontal lines on the road, but I saw vertical lines in the photo. Would those be bad to put in? No, they wouldn't be bad to put in. They're the only thing that is bad is if it doesn't work, if it is ugly or distracting in your painting. But every artist has different ideas about what would be cool. So if you love the vertical lines in the road, try them out, put them in. If they're distracting or they look silly or they, don't look right, take them out again. That's the beauty of acrylics, is you can try out anything, Jody. You can really have fun with your ideas. And none of the things I'm telling you are actual rules. I'm just showing you the tools and equipment that I use in my mind to get through all these problems that painting poses. And so the tools of atmospheric perspective work even in small spaces, but you have to use them more tenderly. The tools of taking some horizontals, breaking up that roadway with large, medium, and small shadow forms, those all help too. So every tool is out there, but I always say this, but it's true. Any workman might have 1,000 tools in their workshop, but they only use the right tool for the right job. So you might have some tools that just don't apply to this painting, and in that case, don't use them. Use the tools like thicken the paint. That's a tool. Thicken the paint. If it works for your painting, put it on. If you go, oh my gosh, that's terrible, scrape it off. And the only way you learn this for yourself, I mean, you can use my tools. I'm happy to share them with you. But the only way you use them is to use them for yourself and see what works for you as an artist, because you have unique ideas inside of you that only you can bring out of yourself. So you use my tools until you figure out your own. And then once you have your own set of tools, use them. Let's see what they're going by. What type of brush did I use for my wash? The one I got for Christmas. It was it is an inexpensive 2-inch wash brush purchased at Michael's. It was in a rack. It was like $13. And my husband and I were walking through Michael's, and I said, "Buy that for me for Christmas." And I walked away. But it's just a 2-inch synthetic wash brush. And let's see, Linda says she thinks the dark green on the left that runs along the road seems to be too quickly to the back. Yes, when I was looking at it that last time, I thought so too. You're absolutely right. It's too dark. And by being a little bit too dark, here, I'll click over to it again. By being a little bit too dark, here we go. We're talking about this dark green. It really took the eye. So in my last little bit, I lightened it up through here to gather some light. But yeah, I think it's too dark. And there's a little bit that's too dark right up by the house. I think there's a little bit that's too dark in the foreground. So yeah, I think those things, you're absolutely right. They were a little too much. And Karen, this is a good question too. I really like this question. The house is centered on the page, but it works. Well, that's because the house isn't the focal point. The focal point is actually the little silo off to the right. And the secondary focal point is the door in the house, which isn't quite centered. It's just off a little bit. But the main visual focal point is actually that little silo. I'll go back again and we'll take one more look at that. The visual focal point is the little silo. It's got that pointy triangular roof. It's got the bright thing going on. And then the secondary focal point is actually inside the window on the door, which is not centered either. So you can center anything. Something has to be in the middle of the painting, but like a portrait, the face is in the middle of the painting. But usually the portrait artist will focus on one eye and that eye will be the focal point, or they'll be just a part, like the light on the edge of between the nose and the eye socket will be the focal point of the painting. Not, so you can't, the rules are there as a guidance, but every once in a while, the only correct place for a focal point might be in the middle of the page. But in this case, they're actually not. The house is, but it's not the focal point. It's just a dark spot that contains the focal point. So anyway, I think our time is about done. And I have had so much fun with you today. Later on today, I think, Peter, this course will be put up amongst our courses and amongst the classes in your journey?
Yes.
So,
I'll do that basically right after I'll upload it to the journey. So.
okay, great. And we're going to have a master class coming up at the end of January that I will be teaching in and Jed will be teaching in. We're going to have a lot of fun with light. And then I will be teaching a class the first week of February on the golden hour, on the light that happens during that magical hour after dawn and right before sunset. And I'm so excited to do that workshop. And I'm definitely going to give it my all because that's my favorite time to paint and the favorite light to do landscapes in. And I just can't wait to share with you some of those ideas. Have fun this month. I hope you join us for the masterclass, and we'll see you next month. And you know,
love you
I love
guys.
you.
Happy painting.
Love you all. Yeah, we love you and we believe in you. So
Like
paint
always.
and be happy. Like